Hi, my name is John. I'm a Cloud Alliance architect from Check Point. This is a video on how to configure a site-to-site VPN between a Check Point security gateway to the Azure vWAN. Here is our network diagram. In the center, we have an Azure vWAN hub. It currently has two VNet connections and a VPN tunnel from Hong Kong. On the left, we have Check Point CloudGuard Connect. This is for protecting internet traffic from a vWAN hub. For those of you who don't know what CloudGuard Connect is, it is a Check Point firewall as a service. We have a separate video on how to configure that on our YouTube channel. Our lab today is to set up a site-to-site VPN between the vWAN hub and our New York office. So what are our configuration steps? Starting from the Azure side, first we'll create a new VPN site for New York. To enhance security, we'll also customize the VPN encryption settings. Then we will download and go through the VPN configuration file to extract the VPN gateway IP address and our pre-shared keys. Now, on the Check Point side, we will configure a new VPN community, configure BGP because vWAN uses BGP to manage routes, and lastly, configure the route map for BGP and create our tunnel interfaces. Now, before we start, we need to have the following information filled out. Even if it's a lab environment, it's always a good idea to have everything in one place so we can reference it quickly. And this is also will help you avoid lots of common mistakes. All right, let's get started. To start our configuration, we first log into the Azure portal. Navigate to Virtual WAN, select the hub. Under VPN sites, as you can see, we already have two sites configured. We're going to create a new one. All right, so first start selecting the region, the name, device vendor is going to be Check Point. We're going to enable BGP, connect this to our existing hub, go to links, link name to New York, provide name, Check Point, speed 500 megs, and the IP address of our New York site. BGP address will be 10.51.1. ASN. Okay. Go to next. Validation pass. Go ahead and click create. This process takes about a few minutes to complete. Okay, so that took about 5 minutes. Next, we're going to customize the VPN configuration. To customize our VPN encryption settings, we're going to dive into the Azure hub itself. Under VPN site-to-site, select New York. On the right-hand side, click on the three dots and go to Edit VPN Connection. Under IPsec, we're going to click on Custom, and then we'll fill in the information from our slide previously. So phase 1, 256, integrity SHA 384, Delphi Hammond Group 14, that's 24, 14, encryption AES 256, and then we're going to select SHA 256 for integrity, and port for secrecy PFS 14. Enable propagate default route if you want to use CloudGuard Connect for internet access. So this will also take about a few minutes to update. Next, we're going to download the VPN configuration file, and I'll show you how to extract the IP addresses and pre-shared keys from it. Okay, so this is the configuration file from vWAN. This is the external IP address of the New York gateway. That is the ASN, the pairing address. Now, these IP addresses represent the VNets that are connected to the vWAN hub. These two are the external IP addresses of the VPN gateway into vWAN. There are two of them for redundancy purposes. Further down here, this is our pre-shared keys that's generated automatically. and the encryption setting. Next, we're going to go ahead and configure the checkpoint side. Okay, so now from our smart console, we're going to go ahead and create the VPN community. Under New, More, VPN Community, Start Community. Even give it a name. Center gateway is going to be the New York gateway. Satellite gateways are going to be vWAN 1 and 2. So they are the vWAN instances, VPN gateway instances we'll be connecting to. So there are two of them for, again, for redundancy purposes. We're going to encrypt traffic on both center and satellite. All right, so now we're going to replicate the VPN configuration from here, from our configuration file, replicate it here. So we're going to go ahead and prefer I2. Phase 1 is going to be AES 256, data integrity, SHA 384, Delphi-Hellman group 14. In phase 2 is going to be AES 256 with a data integrity of, let me see here, SHA 256. Okay, so it looks good. And we're going to use PFS for phase 2, and it's going to be group 14. All right, so that looks good. Tunnel management, leave at default. VPN routing, leave at default. We're not going to enable MEP, and we're also not going to exclude any services. Here, we're going to go ahead and put our share secret. So the share secret is part of the configuration file. So copy and paste that in here. And then we'll leave the rest of the setting default. Press OK. And we can go ahead and install the policy. Okay, so while the policy is installing, the next step is to configure the security gateway BGP settings. So I've already pre-populated all the commands here that we need to push to the gateway. So I'll go through this with you real quick here. So this is to define the BGP configuration. So the remote AS, right? It's going to be 65515, which is represented here, 65515. So these are the peer IP address. These are the route maps, right? Which ones for the export and import. And this down here is the specific for exporting. So this subnet here is my New York internal subnet. And then for the import, because we'll be connecting to the internet via the CloudGuard Connect, so we will allow the import of Quad 0. And these are the IP addresses of the VNets that are attached to the vWAN. And the last two lines here are the tunnel interfaces we'll be creating. So remember the 251.1 and .12 and .13. So these are the IP addresses representing the vWAN BGP peering IP addresses. So we're going to have two. So we're going to have 251.1 in local and 251.2.1 locally, and then remote is going to be .12 and .13 respectively. So, all right. So now I already SSH to the firewall. We're going to go ahead and paste these commands in there. Okay, hold on. Go to push. Paste. All right, looks good. We're gonna paste the route maps in there. All right, And lastly, we'll paste the tunnel interfaces. Okay, so don't forget to save, config. All right, looks good. So now let's verify the policy installed successfully. All right, looks good. So now, because we added the interfaces, the next step is we need to go ahead and fetch the topology for the New York gateway under network management. All right, so notice that there are only two interfaces, so we need to get interface with topology. All right, so it detected the two tunnel interfaces here. Let's go ahead and accept. All right, so as you can see here, the tunnel interface, you see the IP address, and it leads to point-to-point. And under VPN tunnel, it already detected that, look, this is connecting to a vWAN 01, and that's the remote peering address. All right, so that looks good. And we're going to go ahead and install the security policy one more time. Okay. Now, once the policy finished installing, the security gateway is going to try to set up the site-to-site VPN to vWAN. So just give it a minute for the VPN to come up. Now, what you can do to check for the VPN, go back to Bash, like there's a utility called VPN TU. All right, so yeah, it looks like it's already created VPN phase 1. So I press VPN TU, right, and I press 1 to list all 8 SAs. So that's representing all the phase 1s. So we already, looks like we created phase 1 successfully. We have the SAs here. Now we're gonna go ahead and take a look at phase 2. It looks like phase 2 also came up okay. So it looks like VPN came up. Now, what I want to show you here is to look at the BGP settings, right? So you can issue a couple commands here. You can do the traditional netstat -rn. You can see that these are the routes, right? 10.3, 10.200, 201, 250. These are all going out the VPN tunnel interface. So that means that BGP is up and running, and I'm able to receive routes from vWAN. And the other thing you can do is show route BGP. So these are all the BGP routes. And again, it shows you that these routes are coming in from vWAN. Okay, so now that we have our site-to-site VPN to New York up and running, because New York is a single gateway, I want to show you what the differences are configuring a single gateway versus configuring a cluster. So to our Japan cluster, you can see here under the network management, we also have the same VPN 1 and 2 interfaces, but because it's a cluster, you see that the gateway 1 and gateway 2, the BGP pairing address locally, I have it as .2 and .3, and the VIP is .1. So you would replicate the .1 over to the vWAN configuration, and the same for the second tunnel, of course, right? This is going to be 231.1. And then you also have the respective IP addresses here, each one of the gateway. So that's the only difference between the single gateway and the cluster configuration in terms of setting up a site-to-site VPN to vWAN. Okay, so this concludes our video, and I hope you found it useful. We also have a video on how to configure CloudGuard Connect to the Azure vWAN, and you can look for that under our Checkpoint YouTube channel. So with that, thank you so much for your time. Have a good one.